Under public comment, the public has an opportunity to address the board on items that are not on the agenda. Clerk of the board, do we have any speaker cards?
Madam Chair, we do. Marvin Jones.
You're not ready.
Okay.
Good morning and Thanksgiving to you all. Thank you, ma'am. I sent you folks, each of you, a memo, email, I guess it was, about climate change, global warming. In case you hadn't had a chance to look at it, the several references on there, each of them had a link to some web page. First one was from John Coleman, who was co-founder of the Weather Channel. And he said that global warming, the man-made global warming, is about the biggest hoax that has been put on mankind. Found that in a British article. That's the reference in British. You won't find such information in U.S. media. They don't do such things. But second link there was from Patrick Moore, Patrick Moore, and he was co-founder of Greenpeace. Not exactly a right-wing organization, not maybe a little extremist, but certainly not right-wing. And the link I sent you there had a 5-minute video of his presenting data on refuting man-made global warming. Now, he just had references. Well, he didn't have any references to his data. He just showed the data. When I see things like that, I wonder if they're cherry picking. It takes a cherry picker to know a cherry picker, so I don't know that. Third one I sent you was to Pravda, the Russian newspaper. It was the English edition. And they reported in there, the link I sent you, about data, actual data from a Vostok Ice Core project, 420,000 years of global temperatures, atmospheric carbon dioxide. For 420,000 years, when global temperature goes up, carbon dioxide starts going up. Temperature go down, 600-800 years later, carbon dioxide will start going down. Real data. Not opinion, not cherry picking. 400,000 years. Third one I sent you, the fourth one, whatever the number is, was from the National Aeronautics Space Administration. They were interested in sunspot cycles, the 11-year sunspot cycle. When the sunspots are real active, satellites in low Earth orbit have higher drag, and they don't last as long, and they fall out of the sky. They've had nice statistical data there. And they predicted that, I guess in 22 to 25 years from now, we're going to have a almost dormant sunspot cycle, lowest in 300 years. And that back then, I don't recall, but back then was the Little Ice Age. And it was about 6 or 8 years ago that the Russians predicted the 2040, 2050 sunspot cycle, inclusive there, will be dormant and leading again to the near ice age conditions. So there are a number of references, some of them opinions, some of them data, on global warming. We may be not having global warming. Time's up. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Jones.
And we have Lisa Knowles.
Hi. I'm basically bringing y'all a book to read. There's been a lot of talk on gardening, what you can grow or what you cannot grow, mainly stipulations on marijuana, and I'm just basically asking you guys, where does it stop? Because same with like taking oil rights, now you guys are going to be in court, and now the state's already mandating a 99 plant outdoor, 25 indoor. Basically, I would think you would stay with the state. That way they can enforce it and not have different enforcements, because this county can't enforce, they can't enforce the outer territories that the state can. And basically the book is saying that by not legalizing it, taxing it, clinicalizing it, you're promoting the thug life. And that's not what this county needs, is more thugs. We need to stop the thug life by decriminalizing it so we can clinicalize it. And this book by Johan Hari basically says it all, and I'm basically asking all of you to read it. I'm leaving my copy. You can buy your own. You can read this one. But where I'm saying is, where does it stop is, because we all know marijuana is not the enemy. Do we quit making grapes in this county? Because we know that wine isn't good. Do we stop letting them grow barley? Because barley makes beer, and we know that's not good. Do we stop at the walnuts and almonds? Because I have allergic reactions to those. So where does it stop? You know what I'm saying? If you say you can't grow pot, then wait a minute. I've never seen it kill anybody, but I have seen walnuts kill people. I have seen alcohol, wine kill people. I've seen beer kill people. So where does it stop? It's got to stop with a person, not... these are our friends, our family, our neighbors, our loved ones. They're not strangers. Okay, they need a hug. They need love. You read this book and you find out...
Excuse me, you need to speak into the mic, please, and address the board.
You find that 90% of the people that are addicts are abused, neglected, abandoned children. Okay, that's where it starts. You want to start something good at home and at school and with children. Protect every child, and we wouldn't have addicts. But until we can protect all our children.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Those are all the cards I have.
Okay. Anybody else from the public that would like to address the board on items that are not on the agenda? There being none, I will move forward to the department head announcements. CAO Espinosa.
Good morning, board. Yes, we have a few announcements. Our first one's coming out of coming from our chief probation officer, Ted Baran, out of our probation department. Got it.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board.
Good morning.
There are a number of professional associations throughout the state for probation departments, one of which is the CAPIA organization, which is the California Association of Probation Institutions Administrators. And I would like to publicly acknowledge that our superintendent of juvenile hall was recently elected to represent the central region for the CAPIA Association in the state of California. Mr. Joe Frontella, when we hired him, he actually came with a statewide reputation for his knowledge, expertise, and leadership in the field of probation, and that was exemplified by his recent election to a member of the state executive board. I'm really, really proud to have Joe, and as a member of our team, as a team of this county. So, congratulations to Joe. Thank you, sir.
First of all, I really have to thank Chief Baran. He's been instrumental in my success within the county so far, and for allowing me the opportunity to actually be the chair for the Central County, or Central County's region for CAPIA. Just a little more on CAPIA. CAPIA is a great organization. It allows us to make recommendations for best practices within the juvenile institutions, folks within the state. And what I really like about it is it gives us, San Benito, the opportunity to be right at the table with everybody else in the state, and be able to bring best practices back to the county for the kids that we serve at juvenile hall. And I'm just really excited about the opportunity. And again, I thank Chief Baran for that opportunity. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, we thank you, and thank you for representing San Benito County so well. We're very proud of your accomplishments.
Thank you, Madam
Thank
Mayor.
you.
Our next department head is Brent Barnes. He's going to be giving your board an update regarding the general plan, and this will be a report out of the RMA department. Brent Barnes.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. A question was asked about the implementation of the general plan since its adoption earlier this summer. We've been very busy with a lot of things. We're implementing the housing element, as you probably know. We've reinvigorated the economic development function. The one thing, the major task that remains for us, there are a lot of other tasks, but the major task that remains for us is implementing the bits and pieces of changes to the zoning code. We need to, because we don't have enough bandwidth in-house on staff, although it's a fairly simple, straightforward exercise, we just won't be able to get to it in a timely way. We're going to need to go to outside consulting help to make that happen. I don't anticipate that it will be a very large project, but we will bring it back to you for review of that contract when we do go out. I anticipate that will happen perhaps in December, likely in December. Questions? Other comments on the general plan and implementation? Be happy to answer.
Just a comment, Brent, I'm happy that you're moving forward with looking on implementing the general plan, because those have been issues when it hasn't been done timely.
Absolutely.
We have issues in the future, so I'm glad you're on it.
Yeah.
And hopefully we can find somebody soon so we can move forward with it ASAP.
Sure.
Supervisor, go ahead.
I'm sorry. The one other thing that we've done is the complete streets, obviously,
Yes.
policy, and we're moving forward on that. And each of these things, I want to remind the board, play out in a lot of different ways through the various codes of the county. So there'll be not just zoning codes, but subdivision code changes, street design changes, and so on as well.
Okay, thank you. Supervisor Patella?
Yeah, I'm pleased that you're moving forward with maybe having an outside consultant to kind of finish up this last portion of the general plan, and so we could implement it. And that makes a lot of sense to me. I still am very supportive of, having adequate staff down there at the planning department and with code enforcement.
Yep.
And so hopefully you're working and making strides in that area.
We
as
are
well.
indeed.
Thank you. Any other
Thank you for your
comments?
comment.
Okay,
Good.
Brent, thank
Thank
you
you.
so much.
We also have our OES manager here. We have Kevin O'Neill. He'll be giving an update to the board regarding OES and kind of what's happening regarding El Nino and kind of what we're putting in play.
So, good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board.
Morning.
So, 2 weeks ago, I came and I spoke to you about some information sessions we're doing for the public. And last night, we had our first in San Juan Bautista. And just again, I wanted to extend an invitation to all of you to attend the next two. The next one's tonight here in the board chambers. And tomorrow, we're holding one at Southside School on Southside Road. We're just talking about general information on what we're expecting, and then just helpful hints and things people can do to prepare before the big rain season comes. So I just want to invite you all to attend, and hope to see you there tonight or tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank you,
much, Kevin.
The last item we have out of department head announcements is a correction to item number 2 on our agenda. The agenda written on the here is the approved certificate of recognition for Ron Ross, San Benito County Parks and Recreation Commission District 2. Actually, the correction is, and it should read, approved certificate of recognition for Ron Ross, San Benito County Farm Bureau 2015 Farmer of the Year, which was presented at the Farm Bureau dinner November 7th, 2015 by Supervisor Anthony Botello. So we just wanted to make sure we put that correction and recommend that to the board for the consent item. Obviously we have a new system, and there's a few little things we're working on, so it grabbed the wrong thing. We had a little technical difficulties, but we're working out the bugs. I just wanted to let the board know that.
Okay, when that motion, is made, we can just make sure that that's included in the motion.
Yeah, thank you.
Correction. Okay.
That's all the announcements, Madam Chair.
Okay, very good. We'll go to board announcements, and I'll start with Supervisor Botello.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The committee for the ad hoc committee for the marijuana met last week with staff, and we discussed the the current draft proposal that we have and changes that we some would like to make, and we're coming out of that meeting would like to announce that we would like to invite the full board to a public hearing on December 9th at 6 o'clock. We're notice it so that the full board hopefully could attend, and we could take public input on this, some of the proposals for the ordinance and ideas from the public as far as what should be included.
So we're calling this a special meeting, Supervisor Botello?
Yes.
Okay, and
Yes.
that would be for December the 9th. It's a Wednesday evening at 6 o'clock?
That's correct.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is the board able to attend?
What day? When? December?
December the 9th at 6 p.m.?
Yeah, I'm okay with that, Madam Chair. I'm fine.
Okay. Okay, it's noted. Supervisor Botello, anything
Yeah.
else?
No, that's it. Thank you.
Okay. Supervisor De La Cruz?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. We had our since the last meeting, we have had our intergovernment committee meeting, and some of the ideas that we discussed will be presented today at a board level at a later item. So I'm going to kind of hold back on discussing those items until the agenda.
Okay.
But I do want to say one thing, Madam Chair, and this is in relationship to the concept, the idea of the Technology Educational Library Center that we're going to be discussing later on. Is that some of the requirements and actually some of the key players at the intergovernment committee that were discussing and willing to participate last night step up to the plate. They voted 5-0 that they want to work with the county and the rest of the educational community. Gavilan College, I see Ms. Lamont in the audience, and actually she was the leader. She was our leader at that time. We were discussing about the importance of what benefits it can bring to the community. Even Gavilan College, the school district, the high school, City of San Juan Bautista, and City Hall yesterday did the first small, bold step. They support it and they want to work with the county of San Benito. And I'll wait for all my excitement news at the down there.
The agenda items.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Other than that's it, Madam Chair. Thank you very much.
Okay. Supervisor Rivas?
Oh, yes, Madam Chair. And I look forward to that discussion as well because it's exciting, but I'll be more excited when we get money for the library. Anyway, that's a different discussion. The only announcements I have, Madam Chair, I just want to thank. I want to, make sure that everybody has a safe holiday, and wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving next week.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for that. Supervisor Muenzer?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to announce, and I believe I announced it at the last meeting also, but COG will be having a workshop after our regularly scheduled meeting. And the workshop is scheduled for 4:30 to discuss the sales tax initiative, and we're doing it in conjunction with our stakeholders committee, and I just want to let the public know that they are also welcome to our meeting.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Very good. Thank you. The only announcement I have is that the mobility partnership is we already have an established meeting date, so we are moving forward with the discussion of Highway 152, and we will be at the table, well represented by 3 representatives of San Benito County. So, and the other thing is that I would like to request, we had a presentation in regards to our fire station at Rosa Morada, and I would just like to kind of stay on top of it and make sure that monthly we receive an update. I would like to get timelines where we're at, and it's a very important station. I mean, they all are, but I think the sooner we move forward with that and get that in place, we can start concentrating on the southern part of San Benito County that I'm sure Supervisor Muenzer is anxious to start working on. So if I could make that request, I would appreciate it.
Thanks.
And then the other thing is for the regular agenda item, we're moving item 14 and 15. We're reversing those 2 items. We're going to take 15 first and 14 will follow. Okay, that's it for my announcements. Thank you. So at this time, I will ask if there are any consent agenda items that you would like to pull, the board.
Madam Chair, I'd like to pull item number 11.
Number 11.
And 13, please.
Okay. So item 11 of the consent agenda and item 13 are being pulled by the board. Any others? I would like to invite the public to, you have one. If you could tell us which one it is, please.
Item 5, Wilbert White is present.
Which one?
Item 5, Wilbert
Item
White is
5?
present from the Parks Commission, District 5.
Okay, so we'll pull item number 5, and that is by staff. Anyone else from the public that would like to pull any of the consent agenda items? Okay, I'll bring it back for a decision on the remaining.
Motion to approve amended consent agenda, Madam Chair.
Okay, there's a motion with the amendment that the CAO has.
Corrected.
As
I'll second that.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 5, I'll invite staff to come up on this one, please.
Wilbert White has been in the District 5 Parks and Recreation Commissioner for quite some time, and this is just recognizing his service on the Parks Commission given his recent resignation, and that we look forward to a new appointee and appreciate the work he's done to date, including the Parks Master Plan, Regional Park, and River Parkway.
Okay,
Wilbert,
I'd
thank
like
you.
to invite him to come up if you don't mind and be recognized.
Just wanted to say thank you, Wilbur. I'm not sure if you had anything to add, but we've really appreciated working with you and all you've done.
Sure.
Thank you.
Well, I look forward to still, even though I resign, kind of working with that Parks and Rec, because that's my heart. I got my education in that area. So I'm going to say, if you guys need me for anything, you know where I am. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you for your
Actually,
thank you for your volunteer work for San Benito County. It's very much appreciated.
Madam Chair, I actually appointed through the board Wilbert to serve as my planning commissioner, and I still recall the day when my wife and I were having coffee at Cozy Cup, and he came up to me and he's all excited about parks and recreation, and he asked me who I was, and I said county supervisor. He goes, "Oh, I live in your district," and I said, "Oh, I just appointed you to the Parks and Rec Commission," and that was about 4 or 5 years ago. Thank you, Wilbert. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you again. Okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve this consent agenda item.
So moved, Madam Chair.
Okay, motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Supervisor De La Cruz, item number 11.
Yes, Madam. Who's the one I talked to? Who's the one I'll be talking to? I guess this is more for you, Ray. I remember this item that we discussed about that there had to be an exit plan where this organization was going to be exiting out, and we're going to bring in our own staff and start doing the services. And I see here that actually you're asking for an extension, and you just couldn't find the right person. You're going to an ambitious reorganizations of the program. I just don't feel comfortable keeping them on staff. I prefer that we hire our staff than allowing these organizations to continue providing services to the community.
So I appreciate those comments. I think overall, from a staffing level, that's one of the things we've been working on is to actually remove our consultants. However, with the light of staffing and the staffing levels, our current staffing levels with the current projects at hand, we have some pretty large projects with the PV2 project in South County. We have the development going on with Del Webb, as well as Santana Ranch, very large projects, over 2,200 homes just with the two projects plus down south. So there's quite a few things that is at the table right now that we're working on, and not including other things that we need to look at with regards to the roads, parks. There's quite a few things that we're doing, as well as the reorganization itself. So there is a lot of work that needs to be done in this office, and what we're asking is to hire Joe Hordal just as a part-time basis, a couple of days a week, or where the work that is needed to focus on getting those projects done. We still are going to have Brent as our key point person in that office, but it's more really to kind of assist Brent. And as we start building that department, as we start bringing staff in and filling those spots, we will then obviously, not ask, Joe to come back. So I think right now we really have to bolster that department. I think it's really, really important. It's definitely public facing. We have a lot of requests coming in. There's quite a few things going on in that office. So I think to the success of the county, and especially in this office, and at this critical time where we're actually doing a reorg, I think it's really important we have him there. So,
okay, thank you.
Madam Chair?
Yes,
okay.
You still have the floor.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. And then that case, on that note, I'm okay. I do want to see, maybe a 3-month report to the board of what this group is doing, and then phasing out periods on it too, so then we can start hiring our staff to taking on those responsibilities. Good to hear that. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay. Any other comments, Supervisor Patella?
Yeah, I when I saw this on the consent, and from for weeks I've been in favor of this, extending Joe to help in the Public Works and on these special projects, because they're all at a critical stage. They really are, and there really needs to be more help down there for our RMA director to get these tasks done. And plus, we're going into a winter that there's to be very demanding on the Public Works part of the RMA department. So I'm happy to see this, actually.
Okay. Any other comments? I want to say that I will support it. I think that institutional memory is important. We do have some major projects underway, and we need that kind of assistance at that level for the success of this of those projects. So I will support it. I would like to invite the public. Are there any comments from the public regarding this item? Okay, I'll bring it back for a vote.
Madam Chair, I make a motion to approve amendment number 2 to the current agreement with Inter West Consulting Group to replace the services in the original contract with Pacific duties for Pacific projects and extend the term to December 31st, 2016.
Okay. I will second that motion. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Item number 13, Supervisor Botello.
Yeah, I'm going to do this on purpose. I read it, the agenda item, and but I also kind of want to find out where we're at. When we purchase these new cars, they have new radios in them. And are the radios going to work in the black areas or the dark areas of the county that we're having problems with maintaining communication?
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board.
Good morning.
So the radio infrastructure, we had a study done on the radios, and it actually turned out to be favorable for us. We found that by switching to a different repeater on School Peak as opposed to Park Hill, not only the city but the county gets better coverage. These radios that will be going into the cars are the newest Kenwood radios, and they're going to match up with what OES has bought for our hand pack radios. So the interoperability is going to be very good, and they'll be able to be upgradable in the future if we need to do that.
Okay, good, because I still understand that we have some areas of the county, some parts of I think South County, but particularly in the west, that deputies on the street could lose communications with other deputies and the center.
Yeah, I do think with the study that was just done, with the coverage maps that we have now, there are still some problem areas in the county, but these newer, more powerful radios that OES has got and that we're going to be putting into our cars, they're definitely a huge help for the safety of the deputies and for the community, because they're just more powerful and they work better with the repeater that's on
okay, great. That's
School Peak.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other
Madam,
questions?
Madam Chair, if I may,
Yes,
as well.
please.
So this item was brought up by Supervisor Botello some time back. We actually did have a meeting with staff, with the sheriff and staff concerning this. Out of that meeting, we actually missioned Tony Weir, I believe, correct? Tony
Correct.
Weir is actually the one that spearheaded the I guess, evaluation of kind of how things are. So you just mentioned about the report. So I think one thing that we might want to do is come back to your board and give you kind of a full report with regards to that. And if there are any things we need to work on, we'll address that. But I think overall what was just said is that it's better than moving from the other peak, because we had a problem with the two peaks up there, Fremont's and School Peak, and moving that has helped. But I think it might be good to bring that back.
Okay. Very good. Any other questions? Okay, any questions from the public regarding this item? Okay, I'll bring it back for a decision.
I'll make a motion to approve item 13, do staff recommendation.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Okay, we'll move on to regular agenda. And we are moving item 15 first in place, and then discuss item 14. So, CAO Espinosa.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, item number 15 on our agenda is out of our Health and Human Services Agency, and we have Jim Writing-Sword here to present. And this is something that we've have had in years past. It's a sublease between the Farm Labor Association and the Homeless Coalition for the operation of the homeless winter shelter. So we have Jim here to present this item. Jim?
As the CAO said, this is an ongoing contract. The board needs to approve it so that the Homeless Coalition and the Farm Labor Association can continue to work together with Health and Human Services on providing a winter shelter program as has been done in previous years.
Do we have any questions or comments of Jim on this item? No. Any questions or comments from the public? Do you have any speaker cards?
We do not for this item.
Okay. I invite anybody from the public that would like to ask a question or a comment. Okay, I'll bring it back to the board for a decision.
I'll make a motion to approve the sublease agreement between the Farm Labor Association and the Homeless Coalition for its operations of the homeless winter shelter, and authorize the chair to sign the sublease.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Okay, item number 14 now. Jim? Or CAO, if you want to introduce it.
This actually is a little bit different. We actually have it as an expanded program to the existing contract. So I wanted to actually just for the services for the homelessness. So we have Jim here to discuss that, and also to discuss what happened last night at the City Council as well. Jim?
Okay. So if I can indulge the board, just kind of do a little bit of background and history. In February of 2014, the Intergovernmental Committee asked Health and Human Services through the county to, as they called it, resolve the homeless issue. I remember at the time I said resolves seemed to be a bit of an optimistic term because this is a complex issue. It's not easily solved, but it does take political commitment and kind of, moving forward and keeping to work on it. I will say that of all the human services issues that we can work on as a community, this is probably the most complex and probably raises the most feelings amongst people for all kinds of reasons. So we moved forward with that, and we have brought in some funding for acquisition and purchase of what has been termed a homeless service center, and we're continuing to work on that. We have also identified a new funding source to help support ongoing operations for homeless programs, and that is called Intergovernmental Fund Transfer, which your board approved several meetings ago, and we have been approved for that funding and are moving forward to bring that money in. At the same time, as most of us know, we continue to go through a process of talking about where shall this happen in the community. And we continue to work on that. A few meetings ago, the board selected a preferred site, but also asked both Health and Human Services and the Resource Management Agency to move forward. And in that process, the Resource Management Agency continues to look at whatever sites come up. And as Brent has reported to you in previous meetings, we will be coming back to the board with an analysis from Resource Management on that subject. We also continue to work with some consultants from a group called the California Community Economic Development Association. And and they were actually in town last week, I think it was. And they have helped us to begin to identify the potential of other funding sources that we might be able to look at to deal with this problem. And while money is an important issue, I think what we learned in some of the places that we have gone to, such as a homeless summit that we attended with the mayor of Hollister, is that the preferred approach to working on homeless issues in a community is something called housing first. And that's a fairly complex issue to do that, because it requires that you have some kind of resources either in your community or, in our case, on a regional basis to be able to provide housing, and that you have resources to be able to provide underlying resources. Now, the underlying resources are already there. They're in our department. They're in probation. They're in behavior health. It's just a matter of how we use those resources to support a strategy of housing first. Housing first also, indicates that you should be working on training and work programs. And again, that's part of what we're working on with the consultants from CECITA, is to talk about those things. So it's been a interesting journey in the last year and a half, and I know the board shares that perspective. Interesting may not be the actual word that you might use, but it is, and I really want to stress this. It's a complex issue. It's hard to deal with. It's hard to get your hands around it. And sometimes we need to take some steps that we, to do something in the interim until we start to get down the road. So that's what this is about today. We feel that there is a great possibility that this will be a cold and wet winter. We feel that having expanded winter shelter program this year may help us to deal with that, and may help us in particular to deal with those members of the homeless community who may be threatened, endangered, have issues because it may start to rain a lot and it may be very cold this winter. We want to continue to work with our partners in the community, including the Homeless Coalition, to try to make these things come forward. This proposal before you today it doesn't solve the problem. It basically addresses an issue that we may face this winter. Staff has worked very hard to put this together. They have attached a plan for you to consider. They have tried to look at all of the issues and have said that short of an organization such as the Homeless Coalition saying that they would like to take this on, which they've told us they don't want to, then we need to step up as Health and Human Services and make this happen. And that's what this plan in front of you proposes to do over the next several months. We still may be looking at some interim efforts until we can get further down the road, but I hope that the board will find the political commitment and the kind of stick-to-itiveness, I guess. I can't think of another word, just to kind of help us get down the road on this issue, not only from a perspective of how does this work politically, but how does it work in the community. So we're asking you to approve our plan today. If you do not approve the plan today, then this won't happen. And we'll, back at Health and Human Services, we'll reconnoiter and we'll try to figure out what we're going to do this winter. And I thank you for your attention, and if you have any questions or comments, I'll be happy to take them.
Okay. Any comments or questions of Jim at this time? No? Supervisor Batella?
Yeah, I have a lot of comments and questions, and as you said, this is a complex issue, and one of the things I love about my job up here is I continuously learn about different issues and complex issues, and Supervisor Muenzer and myself took a little road trip to a homeless center yesterday, and it just added to the anxiety that I have, trying to solve this. But my understanding, and I could stand to be corrected, of course. We have people in the audience that could correct me, and your knowledge too, is that the shelter program that we have in place right now up at the migrant camp that we just agreed to the sublease, it's not always at capacity. Why do we feel that we have to allocate another $200,000 and more space to that program, or it's setting up a separate program in the same spot?
Right. Well, the only thing I can say to that is we know it hasn't been at capacity in the past. We're not sure what's going to happen this winter. We have over 200 chronically homeless people on the streets of San Benito County. If it becomes an emergency this winter, it could overwhelm the capacity of both programs. We're trying to build something that will try to deal with, the kind of the worst case scenario that might happen this winter, to try to be prepared for that. We think the downside is that if the county and the city as partners, don't work together on this, and we have people that are hurt in the process, it could become a bigger problem for both the county and the city.
May I add to that, Supervisor Botello? It really is about preparedness. We have not had the rains in the past that are anticipated this year, and in the past, a lot of our homeless community was really, in more city situated. They were in fields, they were under trees, they were downtown. They were moved from this area, and they ended up down at the river. So we have a very unique situation. The community there is quite a few people. If we do have the rains and the flooding that is expected, we are going to have to react. This is a proactive approach to address what could possibly be a very, very difficult and an emergency situation. And so really it is proactive. The city, I attended the meeting last night at the city of Hollister. They shared the same concerns that you have. You know, we haven't been at capacity, but we haven't been expecting the rains that are expected now, and we didn't have the number of people at the river that we have now. They also had concerns about, okay, what if you don't use it? What's going to happen to the money? Well, that is to be discussed at a later time. If we expect to use it if we need it. If we don't use it, then we'll go back to the table and say, hey, we didn't use it. What would you like for us to do with the money? They put up $47,000 out of their general fund money. And it was a 5-0 vote with a lot of reservation, because they were worried about what they were going to do, because it's coming out of their reserves. Unlike ours is grant money, right?
Yes,
Jim, it's grant money. So it was, like I said, they had the same concerns. They stepped up to the plate. They understood the seriousness of what could be, and so that we're supporting that partnership, hopefully.
The other question I have, along with this, is that you have one set of group of people operating under specific rules. They have to be sober, they have to be clean,
right?
No drug issues. Is that be the same rules with this if we have to implement this plan?
I believe if you look at the plan that is attached to the board item, I think it's there. I don't see it. Oh, there it is. We modeled this plan off of the current plan, so the answer to your question is those same rules will apply. That is where we are today. That is actually not the philosophy of Housing First, which says you deal with people where they are and you help them where they are. From a kind of social worker perspective, I would prefer that Housing First approach, but we're not there yet. And so I think we need to operate under the rules that we've been operating under in the past, hopefully with some flexibility.
Yeah, I see that in the check-in process, and we've had discussions, I guess, with who we met with yesterday, that, Housing First, and so that's how you solve this chronic homelessness, and so it's been quite informative. Do we anticipate any people, otherwise they would be up there in the shelter to begin with, or trying to get into the shelter, but if they prefer to be outside of the shelter, do we expect any resistance? And if so, what then?
And Supervisor Botello, that is also a very good question, because let's say that there is flooding and we do get the rains expected. Those people are going to be asked to leave there. They're not going to be allowed to stay, but you can't ask people to leave without having a place for them to go. So this will be the alternative that they will have, and they will have to make that choice at the time, but they will not be allowed to stay at the river. Too dangerous, and we would be facing some real legal issues if we don't give them the opportunity to go someplace else. Mm-hmm. So yes, they will be asked to leave, and they will not be allowed to stay.
Okay.
Well, let's, on a more positive note, I heard the mayor say at the city council meeting that he's been down talking with the folks in the encampment, and there's a level of concern on their part about what can happen, and there's a kind of an awareness that if there is some alternative for them to have during a harsh winter, that they would do that. But I will also say that our staff will be out there, and they do this every day, proactively working with the homeless community to find solutions to the issues that they have. I see that happen in the department on a weekly basis. I mean, people sitting down and This is really a difficult community to work with, not because they're difficult people, because they're in difficult circumstances.
Okay. And one last question, Madam Chair.
Yes, please.
With this program, the Homeless Coalition declined to expand their operation. What is the coordination between this program and them sharing the same, basically same area? Is there coordination between the staff up there with the volunteers that are, supporting the first program?
Yeah, it is our plan to coordinate with, the Homeless Coalition and any other providers in the community that we need to. We would prefer to have a unified program up there, but the Homeless Coalition, felt they didn't have the capacity to do it, and I respect that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's all the questions I have right now.
Very good. And Jim, there will be case management services for these folks.
Absolutely.
Okay, very good. Yes, Supervisor Rivas, and then Supervisor De La Cruz.
Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Hey, Jim, thanks for the. I really appreciated the detail in the agenda item, especially the expanded winter shelter program, like the report. I have a couple questions related to the budget. How certain are we that $200,000 is going to be adequate? And if the budget is exhausted and if it's overrun, who absorbs that cost?
Well, part of what you, I think, expect of your departments is to propose budgets and then live within those budgets. And so
I understand that. I'm just asking this because too many times we've been up here and we exceed our budget on several occasions.
Yeah, I've been over this budget with staff several times. It seems like a reasonable budget. I probably might not have made it, at $197,000. But I think what they're trying to do is to say to us, this is what we need, this is what needs to happen, and for us to do it. And if we follow this budget, it will be adequate to deal with the issue for this winter.
Okay. All right, that's all I have right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor De La Cruz?
Yes, Jim, I just need some clarifications. The budget proposal that's being presented today is the extended winter shelter program, correct?
That's correct.
Is that on top of the one that we just have right now with the Homeless Coalition?
Yes, that's correct.
So any activity above and beyond with the Homeless Coalition is coming out of this budget?
Well, I don't know if I would say on top of it. I think that what we want to try to do is to work in conjunction with each other. But again, I think that the issue that's driving, where this proposal in front of you today is the issue of what may happen this winter.
Okay.
And this is trying to be prepared for that.
And this is based on a potential of 40 individuals coming in for services.
Yes.
Above the 26 or 20 that the Homeless Coalition will be attending to?
This was designed with the idea that we think that the last counts that we've had is there are about 40 people down at the river. But there are people in the community that will be impacted this winter.
Okay.
So I think having a larger capacity this winter, even though it may be a little larger than what actually materializes, puts us in the best position of being prepared to try to deal with the homeless community during a very tough winter.
Okay. And Madam Chair?
Yes, please.
Thank you. Jim, so any monies that are left over, because I do see that happening, you have the coalition that's providing that core support from 0 to 20, 25, and then this budget providing above that. So I do feel that there will be funds available March or April. And then we're hiring staff, too. Does that mean that we're going to provide added-on services to the individuals once they're being provided for?
That's what our goal is at Health and Human Services, yes.
Okay. And if there's additional funds, we could even go beyond the March or the April deadline, right?
I think that we need to look at that as we go through the winter, because if what I heard last night, and that's the first time I heard it at the city council, is it's their goal to find a more permanent solution to people living in the river. So I think that raises the issue that, even now we need to start planning for further down the road, and to look at is there anything that we need to do in the interim after the winter until we can get to a homeless service center.
Okay. And then, Madam Chair, I got a couple, then I'll hold the other questions later on. But I got a couple more. Jim, I was there. I too was at the city council meeting yesterday.
Yes.
And I also heard from the mayor say word for word that if this goes forward, and they've been informed that if the rains are coming, they're going to offer them the option to go to the center for services, and then once everything is clear, that the city will post signs trespassing, right? That
is what I heard last night.
That's what.
Yes.
So the city has committed it, because every other member, the city council member, did not debate that statement that the mayor said. To me, means that everybody's on board, that that's their game plan. So they're trying to address the issue of the homeless being at the river by providing a facility, and then once it's clean and clear, they'll post, gate it, and do whatever that it has to do to ensure that the city doesn't want to see the river situation again, correct?
And that's what I heard last night, and that's the first time I've heard that.
Okay.
So I think that just underscores, the need, and there was a lot of discussion last night about partnerships. And I think that underscores the need for, partnerships between the city and the county, which is really, a political level kind of discussion. Staff can support you in that, but that kind of partnership really needs to take place at the political level to be sure that it's moving forward. Yeah. To me, I thought that was, something new that I didn't know until last night. And so I think that we need to have some further discussion about that and kind of figure out exactly what was meant there.
Madam Chair, I have this other question, but I have like 3 or 4 other ones, but I'm going to hold back to allow my fellow supervisors and then members of the public. I got just one more question for right now. Jim, I just want to be educated on this. On the $150,000 that we're getting, that's called the intergovernment
fund transfer. Yes.
Are there any reciprocal requirements that the state wants us to step up to the plate?
The major requirement is that we use the funds to focus on a community that has medical issues.
Medical issues, okay.
And what we said at the very beginning in this process is we plan to use this money to focus on the homeless community, which have some significant medical issues.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome. Supervisor Muenzer?
Okay, and I apologize if I ask any questions that have already been asked because I stepped out. But I'd like to hear from the FLA representative, and just so I can hear that they have beds available for this project. I don't want to assume that they have the beds, because what I've heard that even during the winter, because of the H2 program, their beds are becoming more and more utilized during the winter.
Right. Well, I can also say, and I hope, we had those discussions with them before we went down this road to be sure that the capacity was there.
And thank you, Jim, but I just want to hear from them.
Yes, we have plenty of beds for the winter.
Thank you.
We've got the allocated 40 for them, and then the unit of, I think it's 28 for the Homeless Coalition.
Okay, thank you. And then the other question I have for you, Mindy, the workers that you have there, they are not allowed to have any alcohol or drugs on site?
No. No alcohol, no drugs.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Actually, Madam Chair?
Yes, Mindy, maybe you should stay up there. Okay.
On the same note of Supervisor Muenzer, Mindy, in March or late March or early April, there won't be a a conflict spacing issue, right? It's the number of people that we have from now to the end of the program. There's not going to come a time, we're having a lot of the ag workers coming in, so therefore we need a space. It's all in contract. We're all good to that date, right?
As of right now, yes. I mean, we have contracts that start April 1st with migrant workers, but prior to that, our existing contracts will end November 30th, and then we don't have new contracts with farm workers coming until March 31st. That being said, if I don't know, there was some fluke thing where 100 migrant workers needed somewhere to stay. I don't know. We'd have to evaluate it at that time. I know the camp was built with state funds, and so it's always been maintained that if there's a priority that the farm workers, that there's a place for them to stay. So at that time, if we came to that issue, we would have to address it at that time. We don't have that. It's not an issue right now. I don't have any contracts starting before April 1st, but that could potentially, I guess, but I don't foresee that being a problem.
And that statement, Madam Chair, holds true regardless if the county does the extended winter program or not, right? What I'm saying, it still holds true for the Homeless Coalition.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mindy.
Okay, they still have the floor?
Yes, you
Okay.
still have the floor.
And Jim, again, don't want to make the assumption. So this $150,000 is new money.
Yes, it is.
It's a new grant.
Yes.
And we have the money in hand.
We have the approval to get the money. We expect to have the money in 60 days or so. In the meantime, we will cover that if we need to from other funding within the agency, and then backfill it.
Okay, so we do not have the money in hand.
It's not in the bank right now.
Okay, all right. Now, you brought up something today which I have not heard before, that this grant is to provide medical services.
It's to provide services to a community that have medical needs.
Okay. So are we providing any medical needs to this community?
Well, part of what we do and part of what we would do as an agency is to assess, any participants in the program for medical needs. Probably do that through our public health programs. And if there are medical needs, part of what we do in case management is to try to match those needs up to, services, hopefully in the community.
Okay, all right. Thank you. I think that's all I have at the moment. Thank you.
Any other questions from the board before I open it up to the public? Supervisor De La Cruz?
I just want to make sure that, we cross our T's, dot our I's. That's all. And just want to feel comfortable when we come to vote on this item. Now, Jim, in reference to Supervisor Muenzer's questions about medical needs, I'm looking at the budget at the moment, and I don't see where you set aside money for medical needs, services.
Medical needs for this population would be done to identify what the needs are, to hook people up with the providers. This population group, by and large, is eligible for Medi-Cal.
Does that answer your question, Supervisor De La Cruz? Because this grant provides services to individuals with medical needs.
Yes.
That doesn't necessarily mean that it'll provide medical care for them, but they're individuals with medical needs.
With the expansion of Medi-Cal since 2014, almost, everybody is now eligible. Particularly, let me put it this way: everybody that's at this kind of income level is eligible for Medi-Cal. If they don't have Medi-Cal, we will help them get it. That's part of doing that. If we are working with this community and they have needs such as, trying to coordinate and get benefits through Social Security, we will do that. That's part of what we do in terms of case management. We don't, as an agency, provide direct medical services. We do that through, primarily for this population group, the Medi-Cal program.
Okay. Just my concern about that was making sure that once we submit the reimbursements costs, that I don't want the state coming down and says those are not allowable expenses under these grants, and then we have to pick up the cost through general fund.
We have asked those detailed questions before we put the grant in for this funding.
Okay.
And in reality, when the proposal for this went in, it included a specific statement that we intended to use this money for communities that have medical needs, including the homeless community.
All right.
Supervisor Batella?
Yes, reading the program design, at 4:45, clients will be picked up daily at a location to be identified, and then at 8 a.m., clients will be returned back to that location. Do we have any idea at this, since this has been written, what is appropriate as far as dropping off everybody and picking them all back up again? Are we talking about 4th and San Benito, or?
As I recall, in previous winters, people have been dropped off up the road from here, and I think we're just going to have to kind of work that through as it goes on. I would probably, and I haven't had this conversation with staff, is to talk about as much as possible connecting those people back up to services at the Health and Human Services Agency.
Yeah, that's what I was going to suggest, is that, if we want them to try to deal with some of their issues, why not bring them back to where, our original, thought process was to take them, and then they could walk back wherever they want to go, I guess. They don't want to meet with counselors and support services, but I don't know. This is hard.
Yes, it is.
And then the last question I have before the public gets to weigh in, I guess, is we in the budget we've allocated so much for rent. Is that money that's going to be paid regardless whether we use the full allotment of rooms?
I'd have to look to Mindy for that, but I believe that what we're contracting for is a certain number of beds for the winter.
So if we don't fill them, we still pay?
I believe so.
At our own labor camp?
At our own labor camp.
Thank you.
Which is another topic.
And maybe Mindy can answer that question if she has the answer to that.
The contract that we have with the homeless has always been, if we provide the 28 beds, they've been paying for the whole thing. This has come down the pipe so fast that there hasn't been a lot of time to negotiate all these different things. It was kind of, the model was taken from what we currently do with the Homeless Coalition, and it was just put in place that way. That doesn't, I could go to my board and ask, but this was literally a check your email, I need it signed in 30 minutes type of a deal. So, like I said, there hasn't been a lot of discussion, but that's something we could potentially discuss, based on how many rooms you need or whatever.
I think we need to discuss that personally.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think we're open to it. I think the bigger issue was getting it before the board and kind of the whole concept, and we could work out some of the other little details along the way.
Okay, thank you.
Well, and I would like to add to that, I think that the Farm Labor Association has been very open, very approachable. They want to work with us on this. In fact, I was at the dinner the Saturday night, and Greg Sweat walked up and he says, anything that we need to do to help the county do this, let us know. So I think we're kind of, feeling like that's just part of the partnership of working together.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay.
Sorry, Madam Chair. I'm sorry.
It's okay. Go ahead.
Jim, I'm looking at the transportation. It says here that there will be a daily pickup at 4:45 at the Brigantino Park. Is that making in reference because of the river? The people are at the river?
I think that's what staff assumed.
Okay.
Okay. And if that's something that we have to adjust, we'll just simply adjust that.
Okay, yeah, good, because then through the mayor and the city council, they said that they're going to gate that and post it. So that means that the Brigantino Park will now become the camp for the homeless people?
And again, we heard that last night for the first time, so we need to kind of discuss what that means to us.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Okay, I'll open it up to the public. Do we have any speaker cards, Clerk?
We do, Madam Chair. Pat Lowe.
Thank you. Pat Lowe, Chair of the Homeless Coalition. It's been stated here today that we didn't want to expand our program, which is, we looked into expanding the program and filling the needs with a subcommittee. They had a couple meetings. We went out to our different vendors, and that brings my concern to the security issue. The reason that the Homeless Coalition is not taking on this project is because for the minimum amount of security we felt comfortable with, it was $90,000. You have $26,000 in your budget. I'm really, really concerned about security. Obviously, we're running a program up there. Safety is our number one issue. We have staff, clients, and volunteers that we need security, and I really think your security is underestimated. And there's other problems with your budget, but that's for your staff to work out. My concern is security.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Supervisor Lowe, what do you mean security? Why are you saying that it's the 28,000 is not enough?
Well, 28,000, and now they might have a different vendor that's, the amounts might be different, but I can't believe that we're off by $70,000.
How'd you come up with that figure?
Basically, we felt that we needed to, because of the way the rooms are situated and the difference with their program and our program, we felt that we needed 2 security guards per shift. So basically, we're talking about 4 security guards. With our program, our rooms are open. Our staff is in with the clients at all times. With this new program, there's no way to retrofit the building the ways ours has been retrofitted. And it will basically allow there'll be 4 clients per room. And some of those rooms, because they share a common back wall, some of those rooms open to the other side. And we felt it would be very easy for contraband to come in after they'd been searched, because they can leave by the back side where nobody would really see them. Our rooms can't be left. Our staff is there. With this program, the staff won't be there in the rooms.
Thank you.
Any other questions of Ms. Lowe? Yes.
Yeah, Pat, how do you envision this working between your program and our program? Can there be the cohesiveness, or is that something that we'll have to work on, or is there conflict points that you kind of see operating the current program with people that come and participate now against the people that were, highly suggest you leave the river and go up there, and that's your option? How do you see that working? And I guess that is where the area of the need of, added security and presence.
I want to commend the county. I think they've done a great job in anticipating and trying to work through a problem that might occur. I believe that common people with a common goal can always make it work. But it goes back to the new clients and maybe their resistance to this kind of program, security is key. I just can't, emphasize that enough. Security is key. And the people that we have coming to our program, our clients, basically, some of them have been there for many years. So they know the program, they know the structure, and they understand that they're not allowed to stay if there's a problem. If you're bringing up 40 people that haven't been involved in that before, security's key. That's all I can say.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Any other speaker cards?
Marty Richmond.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. Marty Richard from Hollister. I'd just like to mirror some of the remarks I made yesterday in support of the program. I don't know enough about how it should work to decide where the money should be spent, but we've got to do something. And I just want people to know I'm pessimistic about solving it in the long run. I'm a hard-nosed guy, and I know that these are so complex. Every single individual in this has separate issues. Some have 3 issues, some have 5 issues, some have issues you never heard of before, or combinations. But, we've poured hundreds of millions of dollars into the mental health program. As you know, before we get our tax money, it gets all siphoned off. It comes, it was passed by the people. Well, it doesn't do anybody good if we don't get them into the mental health program if they're sitting down at the river. We're never going to. There's a segment of that population that needs that mental health program more than anybody else in this state. I don't. Like I said, I'm pessimistic. I don't think it's going to solve the problem, but something we can do. As far as whether El Nino comes or doesn't come, I don't know. But I know in every other area of the county and the state, we're getting ready for it. We're putting a lot of money into doing emergency services, getting ready for it, doing a lot of money in flyers, asking people to get ready for it. So we must suspicion it's going to show up, okay? And if it does it, so much the better, okay? We'll take the amount of rain we can handle and no El Nino. But if we need to be ready because it's too late. You might find out, and maybe this will be depressing to some people. If El Nino gets bad enough, you might find out people right now who have homes are going to end up homeless because there are people going to, maybe not so much here because the hillsides aren't that populated, but we know there's mudslides all over this state and road washouts. And I remember in the 90s when people had to drive 3 hours to get to Nob Hill to buy something. You get your house floated away, and you find out all the motels are filled with other people who had their house floated away, you're homeless. So, except for driving to Oregon and Texas and going to live with your families, you may wind up in one of those beds. And if the bed's not there, you can't use it. So this is money well invested. Yes, we may not use it, and some of it will always go to waste, but I think it's worthwhile under the current conditions. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Marty. Any other speaker cards?
No other speaker cards.
Okay, I invite anyone else from the public to address.
Madam Chair, members of the board, I'm Reyes Bonilla. I'm with Shelter, previously known as Shelter Outreach Trust and now Community Homeless Solutions. We did have some county board of supervisors who visited our shelter in Salinas. We currently are third year in operating the winter warming shelter in the city of Salinas. And there's a lot of good questions on budget. I would say 90, even 26,000 is too high. Our security budget is zero. So we hire staff, we train staff how to, verbally and non-verbally to de-escalate situations. Food, we're grateful. Churches in Salinas provide the dinner, so we don't have a food budget. They walk across the street where they access a breakfast. And so If we look at what the city of Salinas and the county of Monterey, money that they give us to operate, we're under $100,000. But I would say that if the county takes on this project, then we strongly encourage maybe even revisiting some of that budget, and we'd like to work with Jim on some of that stuff, at least to share light on how things work in our facility. We did tell the city that and the county that if we're going to be providing these services, then City of Salinas Police would have to be really available when we need them if there's situations that might have gotten out of hand or escalated to situations that might put people at risk. In the last 3 years, I think we've only had one fight. Otherwise, most of the situations are easy to handle and easy to address. So we strongly would encourage the revisit some of that budget. And like I said, we're open to work with, and we have in the past worked with Jim and Enrique on some of these things. But we strongly support the budget. I think there's two things that I would strongly encourage everyone to look at is if you don't place any expectations or rules to the clients, you'll fill those beds. But if you do put rules and expectations, then you're not going to fill the beds. So let me tell you, in the last 3 years for us, the average stay is 30 people. If we were to eliminate that, I can guarantee you we'd have 50 to 60 people in that shelter.
Thank you. I appreciate your comments, and I would like to just encourage Jim, because this is an emergency plan, and we didn't have a lot of time to plan for it. It hasn't been months and months that we've heard of El Nino and the situation that may be coming with the rainfall. So it didn't give us a lot of time to plan. So if Jim can work with you to get ideas on how we can save money and be able to provide the type of security, I think $90,000 for security is an extreme amount of money. Somebody's making money. I don't know. I think we can live within that budget, but Thank you for your help. Jim?
I didn't know Reyes was here. So I just want to say this is an example of one of our partners in the region that has, actually been working with us, and I think has talked with members of our board. It's encouraging to me to go to the regional meetings and have them say, how can we help San Benito? And that has been a very, very consistent message that has come out of the regional homeless coalitions.
Thank you, Jim. Supervisor Muenzer?
Yes, Reyes, if I can have you come back up. It's actually good to meet you. I'm sorry we didn't make contact a couple of weeks ago. But I just want to make sure I heard you right. You say you do have restrictions on the clients that you accept in your units.
Well, in the last 3 years, we've debated whether we use the policies that we have in place now, basically the house rules, because our average has been 30, and the same questions from the board and the city have been, okay, so we've expected higher numbers, and so where the resources going? Well, I said, first, you're not giving us enough money to begin with, because these people come in with multiple issues, especially a lot of behavior issues. So we've placed the zero tolerance on alcohol, drugs, but I think I've been flexible in the sense that if you go in there, at least 70% smell like alcohol. But am I gonna deny access to shelter? I'm not, as long as they're not, basically out of control, their behaviors, causing issues in the shelter, or they're obnoxious. If they're not doing any of that and they're calm, they just want to go get a meal and sleep, then we're okay with that. But in any moment, because we've had those situations where people are, extremely drunk or on drugs, and they're causing havoc inside the shelter, we immediately tell them that they have to leave.
Yeah, thank you.
Supervisor Batella?
Yes, I want to thank you too, Mr. Reyes, for allowing us to visit your shelter a couple weeks ago and allowing your staff to answer some of our questions and yourself being available on phone. But, and Supervisor Muenzer and myself went to another shelter yesterday in Santa Cruz County, and it was quite different than the one we visited in Salinas.
Okay.
And so, do you have a kind of a? Are you operating a shelter that's kind of mixed with family, single men, and women?
Are we talking about the ones you visited or the ones?
The one I visited was very similar to our
single
man's
mommies
house.
with children. Yes,
right.
The warming shelter, the winter shelter in Salinas, allows for 3. It allows for single men, single women, and then families. So we're separated. It's not rooms, so it's easier to supervise and have direct supervision or observation. So we tapered off, so we're separating the 3 populations. And with overnight staff and trained staff, then it's easier to manage.
And just for clarification, for the security, is that provided just your administrative person that opens the door? Is that somebody that is kind of like
you have 3 type of staff. You have the on-site manager, then you have the assistant coordinator, and then you have what we call direct staff, and those are the three type of staff that we have. So basically, every night it's a first come first serve, but we do search. We do bag everything, making sure that we have all the belongings to reduce any liability or or posing any danger to any of the staff or other clients. So we open doors and we screen right away for anything that may pose danger. So, for example, if people are really obnoxious and because they're under the influence, then we ask them to leave. But they're in there signing paperwork on a daily basis. It slows down the process, but it makes it's that safety measures that we put in place so that everyone's safety is,
Yeah. And one last question: are you familiar with the location that we're being proposed to, for this winter shelter? It's basically a labor camp.
I've known it for all years. I was raised here, so
you know where it is.
Right.
Do you think that kind of hinders the security question as far as the openness of
I think Pat raised a very good question. If you're going to have it closed off like that, then you're going to have to do, you got to decide. If it was me, I'd do 15-minute checks as you do walkthroughs because you want to make sure that things are not happening. I think an hour is way too long. A lot of things can happen with an hour, even 15 minutes, to be honest with you. When as we work with Jim, we'll strategize and make sure that walkthroughs are going to be on time, on time every intervals. I know staff may not like that because you don't have direct supervision, but they're going to have to be moving quite a bit.
Thank you.
Ray, could you please leave your card with our clerk of the board so I may get it? Thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions of Ray? Okay, any other comments from the public? Mr. Jones?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. The state of California has 24 more or less migrant labor camps around the state. The one on Southside Road happens to be one of them. It is operated by San Benito County, but it is a state facility operated by San Benito County. Since the Farm Labor Association has been handling care, it's really been upgraded to a first-class facility. Ms. Lowe addressed one of the concerns I had is the new building, the next building that's going to be configured for the homeless. Is it going to be like the old one? The answer is no. It's going to be the individual 4-bed units with no connectivity like the current one. Security issues Ms. Lowe addressed, not go there any further. The other item, I'm having a senior moment. There was another item that I thought of there that was of concern, and that was the not coming to me, so I'm going to have to give 2 minutes back here. But again, the Ms. Lowe addressed one concern, and I can't remember the other one. So I thank you for the time.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else from the public that would like to address the board? Okay, we'll bring it back for a decision. And I would like to make a motion that we approve item number 15 per staff recommendation.
Madam Chair, I'll second the motion, but I would just want to have my input into it.
Very good. For discussion, you have a second, so there's a motion and a second. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I see this as an opportunity to go into a new direction. However, there are some issues. It's not a perfect project. It's not a perfect plan. It's not a perfect idea. I understand all the issues. I do have concerns with the security. And I thank you, Supervisor Lowe, for bringing those issues to the table. I do appreciate it. And I hope, Jim, we take note of it and making sure that we address those issues. I appreciate that the City Hall took the lead on this one by, ponying up the $50,000 out of general fund money. We're not doing that. In fact, that question was raised. Why is it that you're going for grant money and we have to put general fund money? And Jim, you said it very perfectly. He says, hey, we apply for these funds. You answered my question about are there any ties, any considerations, any commitments that we have to do for getting those funds? And you said no, that it had to be for medical necessity. I do have some concerns that in a year or two we might get a report saying that these are unallowable expenses. That's why we talk about it today. You're put on the record that it's actually an allowable expense. I'm okay with that. It's time for us to move forward, Madam Chair. We had lengthy discussions on this issue. I heard from both sides. I heard from the Homeless Coalition. I also heard from the City Hall and yourself, Jim. And I just want to provide a service to the community, especially if El Nino is going to come into our community. Let's move forward. And you know what? And if the waters don't come here, fine. Yeah. But we still have the money available. Because we got to start planning on what we're going to do next year, because the Homeless Coalition already gave us notice that we need to do something because they can't do it anymore. So let's work on it to do something for next year. It's a short-term, I don't want to say it, somebody said it's a short-term fix that we really need to address a long-term. And hopefully with the permanent facility, homeless facility, hopefully that addresses that concern. So I'm ready to support and vote on and take the lead and follow what the City Hall did, and for us to move forward and step up a plate and become leaders on this issue. Thank you, Madam Chair.
And I have to correct my motion. I said item number 15, but it's really item number 14. And I just want to make a comment. I know that former Supervisor Pat Lowe has a concern about safety, and I do too. But I think, like I said earlier, this is an emergency situation. We have to figure it out. We have to do what we need to do to make this place safe. I know that there are long-term clients. They know the rules, but they didn't come in knowing the rules. If we get new clients, they have to learn them just as the long-term clients have in the past. So I think we can work through it. Supervisor Batella?
Yeah, I beg to differ with some of the comments Supervisor De La Cruz had. I think we have been in partnership with the City of Hollister for quite some time and working together on this homeless issue. They didn't step up. We have stepped up, and we have stepped up together. We've done little things down there to help, resolve some of the issues down in where the homeless are encamped right now. We're working very hard as a board, and our staff has worked really hard trying to come up with a permanent solution. We need to deal with this not just because El Nino is coming. We need to deal with this because this is a need in our community. It is complex. I have, concerns about the budget, but I think this is a evolve. This budget will evolve. I think Jim heard some of the concerns with the other users of the camp for security. And it's only fair for the H2 employees that are up there, as well as the other program and this emergency shelter. But security has to have precedence and for everybody. So hopefully we look into that and make sure it's adequate and that the oversight is there. So, but I think I'll support this today, but I would like to see this come back with an update as far as how this is being worked out with the Farm Bureau, the Homeless Coalition, and this emergency program. And I think we could work with the Farm Bureau as far as some of the costs, because we got to spread it out, but we'll be
agree.
fair. Thank you.
Okay, Supervisor Muenzer?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Supervisor Patello stole some of my thunder. I would ask that the maker of the motion and the second accept a friendly amendment, and that amendment would be to have monthly updates as part of the motion.
I think that's a reasonable request, and I will amend my motion to include that.
And I'll accept that one, Madam Chair.
Okay. Supervisor Rivas?
Yeah, all I have to say is, I agree with a lot of what the speakers have had to say. I want to thank staff. I know I've shared my frustration at this whole process. I clearly have my reservations about the budget. I think the monthly update is a good thing to keep us all on track. And really, my frustration stems from the fact that I think that something like this requires greater planning. And I would hope that moving forward that we could work with other organizations to see how these organizations can help our county moving forward. And certainly the security issue is a significant issue. If you have the Homeless Coalition who's been operating the shelter for over close to the 10 years now, and these issues are real. When you have the configuration that we have to work with, unfortunately, requires more security. So that certainly is a concern I share. But I do want to thank Jim, for all the work that you guys have done. I just hope that moving forward, it's we won't hit as we won't have the issues that we'll.
We're worried, yeah.
Yeah, that could have a problem that as a county could present as a liability moving forward. But thank you.
Okay. All right. So there's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. We're going to take a short break and resume with item number 16.
Question. Yes, sir.
Okay, I'd like to continue our meeting and our regular agenda items. Item number 16, CAO Espinosa.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, this item, at one of our prior board meetings, staff recommended that we would come back to your board regarding sales tax and give you an update. In particular, we were going to look a little bit more closely at financing, bonding, and how that related to the sunset or how many years we wanted to have that. So today, Sarah Fontanos is here to discuss with your board kind of what work's been done since our last meeting and kind of where we're at today. Sarah?
Yes, so I've contacted 5 different finance-type corporations that I think are part of different phases of any kind of building project. Unfortunately, none of them could attend today, but I was able to confirm one for our 12-1 meeting, and I have a call with our K&N Finance, David Leifer, at 2 today to discuss if he can attend on 12-1. So I'm hoping to have a good, selection of different types of financing option at the December 1st meeting. I apologize, none of them could make today. But we will be discussing certificates of participation, lease-back options when you're dealing more with the construction type of things, and how sunsetting relates to the bonding and financing. There might be some flexibility in there that I wasn't aware of. So,
But no, that's good, Sarah. We have made a decision to be in the November ballot, so that's given us a little bit of time and better to get all this information up front. So I'm okay with that as long as we hear it soon.
Yes, absolutely.
Do we have any questions? Or yes, Supervisor De La Cruz?
Yeah, Madam Chair, just for your information, Sarah, I'll be at the CSAC conference on that day. So I won't be attending the board meeting for December 1st. I'll be at a CSAC conference.
You'll be at the CSAC conference on
Monterey.
December 1st. Okay.
Would it be better if I tried for the 15th?
I'm okay. I would rather have the full board here
Okay.
for that discussion. Are you, everybody okay to hear this discussion on the 15th of December?
I'll change that date. Thank you.
If you can change the date.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any other questions of Sarah, or do you have any other information at this time?
Not at this time.
Sarah? Okay. Okay. Thank you very much. We'll move on then to item. I am so sorry, Marty.
I didn't put it in because I didn't know I was going to.
No, but I should have asked. It's my fault.
All right. Marty Richmond from Hollister. I want to remind the board of an old saw. 100% of nothing is nothing. So I understand there's a lot of reasons on the how long the tax will go, but you should pick one that makes sure you're going to win the election. That's the most important factor. The financing factor is important, but that's number one, and the financing thing is way down there compared to number one. It may be number two, but there's a huge gap. If you don't win, the financing options aren't going to make any difference. So these folks who do this, they have a good reading on how long to go and how it affects the vote. The longer you go, the less votes you're going to get, I assure you. The reason is it's a confidence-building process, and I know many of you know this, but I want to get it out there for the part of the public who wants to know why you pick certain lengths. It has to be long enough that you can make what you want to do with the money work so that you show some results. If it's too short, what happens is you never can get in a rhythm, you never get the money, you never get it planned, and you never get it accomplished. And then when the time runs out, and the first thing everybody says is you never did anything with it. So it has to be long enough for that, but it has to be short enough that the public says, I'll be able to make an evaluation on this and decide in X amount of years whether or not I want to do this again, or permanently, or whatever. And over time, they will decide, and that's the way our system works. My personal experience has been the number picked by the city, not because I live there, but because it was a good pick, was 5 years of the first time around. 5 years. The second time around, and they're probably going to go for a lot longer the third time around. So 5 years is usually enough time to get a project done with the money. It's usually short enough that the voters say, I'll remember what happened in 5 years, and I'll be able to make an evaluation. So maybe somewhere between 5 and 7. But anything longer than 7, I think, is going to meet a lot of resistance of people saying, "I'll never get to put my vote in again about whether or not I want to do something." Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Marty. Anyone? Do you have any other speaker cards?
I do not for this.
Okay. Anyone from the public that would like to address the board on item number 16? Okay. What I would like to request for, if we're going to wait until the 15th of December, is that there is the potential or the ability on that agenda item that we can make a decision on the sunset time. So that this way we can get going on the wording for the measure, and I believe we do have a timeline for that early on in the year. Correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Any other comments from the board before we move on? Okay, we'll move on to item number 17. CAO?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, library services, building size, and the goings-on within the library have really been a topic of conversation for some time. Since I've been on board here in the administrative area, it's been really, I think, 3 years of discussions of what we can do to make our library better, to provide services for their community, students at the high school, so on and so forth. So today, staff is requesting to work with the city to develop an RFP for a needs assessment for a tech, education, and library center. I believe this actually came out of the intergovernmental meeting. This was discussed, and also the city of Hollister discussed this as well at their city council meeting last night. So today we have Sarah Fontanos here to discuss this with your board, to add some comments, as well as the ad hoc Supervisor Margie Barrios and Supervisor De La Cruz to discuss their thoughts with regards to this. So, Sarah?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Actually, before Sarah comes up, let me just enlighten the board how the process came about. And I had Marty Richmond call me and ask me, "Hey, Jaime, what is the concept, what's the idea of San Bernardino County, City, Hollister working together on doing a independent needs assessment on the future and the needs of the library?" And I said, it's a wonderful idea. Bring it back to the Intergovernment Committee, and we'll talk about it. We placed it on the Intergovernment Committee, and Marty made a presentation. We disseminated reports on what Marty asked the Intergovernment Committee to consider. And in the process, the board started talking about how to do add-on services to the library. And the focus points became the library, but other ideas came up, such as technology, such as educating our youth, how to improve the rate of the City Hall or San Bernardino County's rate of individuals in our community who have a bachelor's degree and who have a master's degree. How can we improve that rate? And so other ideas came up. We have the mayor says, maybe we should go visit the Monterey State University newly created library. Something like that, a facility that can house the library, educational rooms, community centers, technology being implemented where a student can come into this building and learn and be educated and have access to the technology and the web. And then we asked our staff, Ray and Billy and Sarah, to come up with ideas. And so it all came to the board, and it was so funny because Sarah and Ray were writing words what to call it, this idea, and technology came up, library came up, education came up, center came up. And so the idea was born, and it was called a TAL Center, the Technology Educational Library Center. And it doesn't matter where it's at, if it's the E in front or the T in the back. It's all the concept of building a center that can house and hold this facility for the betterment of our community, our kids. And so the ideas came up, and the mayor says, well, I want to do it. And actually, Ms. Lamonto said, I like the idea. I think we should do it too. And I asked the mayor, says, you know what? You need to get a commitment from your city council member before I can take it back to the board of supervisors. You get a commitment that you're willing to work with the county and you're willing to work with our staff on the idea, the concept, taking that small step, that bold step to a vision. If you can do that, and you get that commitment from the city council, we will take it to our board of supervisors and ask them for their support. Just to think about it, just to think about what kind of vision we want to do. We're not asking for money. We're not asking to go in this direction. We're not asking this is the idea we want to do. What we're asking is the county willing to partnership with the city of Hollister and all the schools, Galvin College, the high school, the Hollister School District, even San Juan Education Community, are they willing to come up to the plate and help us think of the ideas and how to bring a request for a proposal and then move forward? But until we get cooperation, until we get partnerships from the rest of the community, there's no way we can go back to the intergovernment committee and say, these are the wishes of the city council, the board of supervisors, and the other members of the community. So the city of Hollister last night said, we want to work with the county on moving forward on a visionary idea called the Tao Center. And so we are here today. Sarah?
Thank you, Supervisor De La Cruz.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
I appreciate that introduction.
Good morning, everyone. Yes, so the idea was agendized at the request of the mayor of Hollister, and the conversation actually focused the needs assessment originally on the San Benito County Free Library itself. As you can imagine, these group members have a strong will for education for the youth of the county, making sure that they are competitive for high quality and fulfilling jobs. So instead of just it being a needs assessment for the library, it did grow into exactly what Supervisor De La Cruz said, emphasizing technology, education, and library services for all members of the county. In conversations with Nora, our department head for the San Benito County Free Library, I've found that this has been a dream of hers for the last 9+ years. She's worked diligently to make sure that technology and education is emphasized in what she can already provide in library services. The fact that this conversation has started with this agency to discuss parallel goals and vision and see where everyone aligns, I think is very exciting for her and something she's been waiting for a while. A strategic plan does exist for our San Benito County Free Library. It was created by the input of the public. With your approved direction, the Intergovernmental Committee would like to work towards identifying shared needs for technology, education, and library services, which would eventually mean a joint use agreement. And I want to emphasize, it's not just shared resources, but it's shared costs. The first step towards this is the county and city staff working together for an RFP or queue for a third-party needs assessment for technology, education, and the library. And I want to say, at minimum, what that would mean is the mayor's ability to have a third-party document to go back to the city council and say, this is where we could share costs, this is what they're doing, this is their plan. This new plan is just something bigger, and I think Nora, what she has been hoping for quite some time. I did want to add, Crystal, our superintendent of schools, couldn't stay. She had to leave at 10. She does have a meeting with the school superintendents on Thursday where she'll be discussing this. She has already put in a call to Gavilan College. I think it's actually quite, it's serendipity for me because, as you know, I've been working on so many impact fees and identifying revenue sources specifically for the library. I think it's important to consider what all this would mean together in longer-term planning, and I'm going to provide an example that I think emphasizes the ability for us to have local match, be able to work with schools for bonding, and have those revenue sources identified so that you can build a bigger dream such as this. I'd like to bring up the example of the Lincoln Public Library at 12 Bridges, and I bring this one up just honestly as an example, not necessarily being the model for what we have to go for, but I think the long-term goal of what they've done, which is an agreement between the city, the school, and the school district, where they've parceled 25 acres for the high school with a library adjacent to it, and a parcel for the community college as well. In conversations that I've had even through the regional park and my impact fee discussions with other superintendents, what always comes up is forecasting growth and what these new subdivisions mean for them in the number of students. With this Lincoln Public Library, their joint use agreement identifies who takes care of what. It identifies a technical advisory committee that makes sure the interests of all three or however many parties are there are met, program-wise, daily operation-wise. I think there is a lot of details to be worked out. There are a lot of numbers to be worked out, but I think this is the first step towards that direction. And at minimum, like I said, something for the city of Hollister to have to show, hey, this is what we need to do out of a $700,000 annual budget for the library that the county is paying for. This is where you can at least help. So I would like to invite Nora up if she'd like to add anything.
Good morning, Madam Chair, Board of Supervisors, and the public. I just cannot express to you what this means to me. It may be viewed as a small step, but I think it's a huge step because it really defines us and where we would like to go, not only now, but in the future. And planning is so important. You know, if we don't plan, we plan to fail. So I'm so excited about this and that we are looking at working together to take our library forward and, of course, our community forward as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Nora. Okay, any question? Are you
any questions?
Open for questions and comments? Okay, anybody?
Yeah, I have, I guess, a comment. Somebody's got to say it. You know, I'm excited about, after Supervisor De La Cruz gave his introduction to this idea, and I kind of got caught up in the enthusiasm too. You know, it's a great idea. I think, the city and the county could work together to, enhance our library, and we need to. No question about it. That's the only way we're going to get it. But I see in the AIG here, there's no cost to be determined, and being a rural representative, District 2, I went to a town hall meeting in Aromas the other day, and not one person mentioned the need for library services. What we're concerned about is roads and public safety, police, sheriffs, and we're coming out of this recession. Our budget's getting a little bit more healthier. I think we see it countywide, but we're not quite there yet that this has to be the highest priority. We have a road crisis that if it rains, it's be a complete catastrophe. And, I see this as costing money. And right now we have a history of the schools closing their libraries, which I think is a responsibility for them to provide. We have Gatlin College that won't commit to any more than a couple of rooms as far as a college here. They're not planning on building anything. And then the city of Hollister that gives a contribution of 2%, I think they still do, $15,000, last I heard, to a $750,000 county budget. And now they want to partner. I have a couple other higher priorities that we have to address in the near term before we could go out and have a grandioso plan. And I certainly would like to see the city of Hollister invest more into our library, say to a tune of $250,000, so we could buy some computers and expand some programs and things like that. But I think so far I'm seeing and hearing talk, but are they talking about dollars? And we haven't even got our impact fees put together for the library. I'd like to see that come back so we could commit more money to it. And then, I also want to know where we've studied the needs for the library, of space needs. Does that get thrown away and we start over? I don't know all the answers to this, but from my perspective, we have to have adequate deputies on the street. We have to solve our retention problems with our employees and staffing levels to provide higher level of service and fix our roads. That's where I'm at. But, I'm interested in everybody else's opinion.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Supervisor Botello. Those are very good comments and very, valid concerns. Having sat on the Intergovernmental Committee in knowing that you're right, the city has not supported us or the library as they should have. The county has been committed all along. Even, I mean, it was tempting, even through the recession, to take away all funds, to close it up, but we didn't do it. We knew that it was a priority and that we were going to stick to it, and we're going to, keep them open and do our job to provide that service. The city, not so much. Well, they're at a crossroads now, and Supervisor De La Cruz said it very well. He was not going to bring it back here until they made a commitment that they would partner with us. To what extent, we don't know yet, because this is not talking about what we're going to invest for the library. It's only talking about we need to do an assessment. And that assessment will tell us, what do we really need? What is going to be the cost? What's? And so this assessment will give us those answers. We expect that Gavilan College will be a partner. We expect that the Hollister School District and all the other school districts will be partners. We expect the County Office of Education. The superintendent was at the table, and she was very committed. Like Sarah said, she's taking it to the superintendents. People are finally realizing that they have to be partners if we want to get things done. And so it's long-term planning. It's a huge step, but it is really only the beginning. We're not committing any dollars other than we're going to the table with the city of Hollister, create this MOU to go out for this RFQ, and get the ball rolling. Long-term planning. This may not happen in 2 years, maybe not 5 years, but we got a plan. It'll open up doors for opportunities for grants, for matching funds, for the community to see that we're doing something, and maybe they'll invest as well. But we got to start somewhere. It's our responsibility, and here we are. And you're right, our roads are the most important thing right now, and we're not going to lose sight of that. But as we're moving forward with some things, do we drop everything else? No. We have to do the long-term planning on other important issues, and this is one of them. So, Supervisor Rivas.
Yeah, obviously, a needs assessment involves determining the needs or gaps between where we want to go as an organization, where we envision ourselves in the future against our current state, right? What's the current state of our library? And so as the chairwoman just said, if this is what it takes for us to build support and to gain some community partnerships for the future of our library, then I'm all in for this action. I don't think the need assessment is for us. We know the needs of our library. We're in a dilapidated building. The services are significantly outdated. The technology is almost non-existent out there. The list of needs is significant. But what I'm looking more, when I see this action on our agenda, what I'm looking very forward to is establishing partnerships. Exactly. And the last thing I want to do is to do this needs assessment and then shelve it because we don't have the money to do it, and that is likely. But at least, if that's the case, I have a document to throw in the faces of other community organizations that says, see, we did this together, and we need to do this for our community. Because, what I'm interested in is to develop a plan of action moving forward. And how do we fund a library? And this plan of action shouldn't be a County of San Benito plan of action. It should be a community plan of action that includes the County of San Benito, that includes the City of Hollister, that includes our local the Gavilan College, San Benito High School, the high school, the Hollister School District. We need to include as many partners as we can to this effort because this library isn't for our kids; it's for our community. It's shameful the way our library. I thank all the volunteers and our staff and our librarian for doing everything they can with the amount of resources that they have, and unfortunately, the building that we have. But we need to do more, and this is certainly doing our part to help, our children and our residents. So, thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Supervisor Muenzer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Do we have a guesstimation of how much this needs assessment is going to cost?
An estimate of the cost of the needs assessment? Not yet. That's what we're hoping to determine from, that's why it says a request for proposal or qualifications. So as an attachment, we can, one, find out how professional qualified they are, and two, get the kind of the estimated cost of what that looks like,
So
and have a broad
we
array.
don't know if this needs assessment is going to be $10,000, $100,000, or $1 million.
Right.
Well, Madam Chair.
Wait a minute. Supervisor Muenzer still has the floor, and
Okay.
then we'll go to you.
Okay. So, having asked that question, it still bothers me, and I think Supervisor Bertello is the one that brought it up, or maybe Supervisor De La Cruz, how the school districts came to us and said we had to keep our library open because they were closing theirs.
Yeah.
And we heard it time after time after time from them as we struggle with keeping the library open at the cost of public safety, basically. And I know I took political hits for doing that. I think maybe we all did. I want to thank the city of Hollister for stepping up to the plate last night and committing to this process and being a partner with it. What I would like to see is, and I'll call it the educational community, stepping up to the plate too and assisting us with the cost of this need assessment. And I thank the superintendent of schools for being here. I understand when she could not stay, but I thank her for being here. But I'd like to see Gavilan College, the high school, the city of Hollister school districts here partnering with us, because their students are going to be, receiving the benefits of this. So I would like the invitation sent out to them to see if they would partner with us in paying for this need assessment. Thank you, Madam
And that
Chair.
is the plan, Supervisor Muenzer, and that is the reason for the county superintendent of schools to go to the superintendents that she meets with, that includes all the school districts in the
Okay.
county, and ask them for some sort of a request or commitment.
Right. And so before, Bill Alvera actually mentioned this during the intergovernmental meeting. The reason why we did the Q and the P, so that we can see that broad range, so that we can say, well, the $1 million option is probably not the option, but at least we can get, from the 5 to that range, so that we can all have a better understanding of cost and who it is, how, their qualifications.
Yeah. Supervisor De La Cruz? and
Yes.
then Supervisor Botello.
Yes, madam. Some comments, but first some response to my fellow supervisors is that it sets almost a parameter, a ceiling, because two things. One, we're probably going to be looking at about $25,000, $30,000, and two, there's going to be other organizations that are going to step up to the plate, and one of them is already the city of Hollister. And I'm pretty sure that Ms. Lamonto, through her office education, will most likely step up to the plate. Yes, we want to play ball. And obviously there's always the community foundations and say, we're going to work too with the idea. Now, in reference to some of the prior comments, I totally agree with the comments from fellow supervisors said, and it's not about us, it's about our kids, it's about the generation. It's what legacy can we leave here? It's about fixing the library that we have today. You're absolutely right. The city has been putting 2% of dollars every year. There's no dispute on that data. However, when they made the commitment last night that they they understand that they've not been playing ball, but now they want to come to the table and recognize that there's an issue that we need to address. They were excited. They want to move forward, and they want to say, San Bernardino County, how can we work together? We know we don't have an excellent track record, but how can we work together? And the first question, my response is, prove it to me. Prove it to me, and have your entire city council members approve it 5-0. And sure enough, they did it 5-0. And this also allows exactly what Supervisor Rivas said, is that when there's a project that gets approved, there's no discussion on what impact does it have to the schools. Who's going to fund the next school? Where's the money coming in for the next school? Who's doing this? Why isn't the Office of Education at the table discussing about planning? Why isn't the Hollister School District at the table asking about impacts? They never do that. All they do is always ask how much money is coming into our district. And I get tired, and it frustrates me when I have members of the community asking me, what are you doing to build another high school? and I say, I'm an elected official, I'm a county board of supervisors, these are my jurisdictions. I would love and I'll invite the education elected members to come to this table and say, this is how we can do it. And I feel that by having something like this, it allows that discussion. We can provide a tool in which we all get together and provide those healthy discussions that need to be addressed. Because people always say, you need to build another high school. Rivas, what do they have? Over 3,000 students at the moment? 3,000 students. When I was in high school, it was only 1,500 students. And I thought that was crowded. So I think this is a good idea. We're not going to spend any money today. We're going to invest resources and move forward and come back. We're going to report to you guys. There'll be golden opportunities and many opportunities, and we can dictate how direction we want to go. If we're going too much to the left or too much to the right, we will have the authority to do it here.
Yeah.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome. Any other comments before I... Supervisor Botello.
Okay. I want to make sure that you understand. I think it is a good idea to form this partnership and to go forward. And I just hope that it doesn't stop with just paying for a study. There's a lot that we can do short term in our library that needs investment with the space we have now. And, I would like to see some real substantial commitment from the city and maybe even the schools towards investing in what we have right now, making our facility and program better. And that's take dollars, money. And, if they truly are, willing to partner, I think we could expect a little bit more contribution from their part and shouldn't be nervous about asking for it. And, I think that would go a long ways in developing my, faith in establishing a track record.
Thank you, Supervisor Botello. Go ahead, Supervisor.
Madam Chair, Supervisor Botello, you are correct. And we shouldn't mix or dilute both your comments with the idea. I think that both need to go in parallel. I think we need to move forward with the idea, and at the same time, when the opportunity comes available, and we're going to the budget process, and when Nora starts discussing with other agencies, that those ideas need to be entertained concurrently together moving forward.
Okay. I'll open it up to the public. Any speaker cards?
Mr. Marty Richmond.
Okay.
I hope you'll ask me a lot of questions. Marty Richmond from Hollister. I submitted the packet through Supervisor De La Cruz to the Intergovernmental Committee to get us off the dime because we've been doing a lot of talking on this and no action. I went out and found a very highly qualified, he's not a relative of mine, very highly qualified person who does needs assessment on libraries in the Middle West. Okay. And he came highly recommended, and he sent me a 20-page resume, which I sent on to the Intergovernmental Committee of how many libraries done. It's enormous. And he didn't give me a firm fixed price, but for a traditional library needs assessment, I gave him the data from our library. I've downloaded all the databases from the state on our library. I know more about the physical attributes of our library than I ever want to know. And he gave me a rough estimate with expenses of $25,000. Now, if you're going to expand that enormously to include technology and education, a lot of stuff, it'll cost more than $25,000. This was a standard. Here's where you are. Here's what you need to do now. Here's where you're going to be in 5 years based on our general plan. Here's where you're going to be in 20 years, and here's what you're going to need to be a library. I've studied this library thing until I'm kind of got the numbers going crazy in my head. Really, the purpose of trying to get you teamed up with the city, and I didn't think about the education folks, was to put a crack in the dam. So they're contributing $15,000. That's peanuts. I agree. You don't have to convince me. Because they're folks that are primary users. The reason the folks in Aromas don't care about the library is they can drive to Gilroy in 5 minutes and use their library. Okay, so they don't need the library. but the people here in Hollister need the library, and the people and you represent some of the people from Hollister, Supervisor Botello, and all of you do in a way, almost all of you do. And the people in Hollister need it more than anybody, okay? And even our best students need it, not just our worst students, but our best students need it because they come out 2 steps below the people in Santa Clara County who've got all these programs. This is like saying, oh, we want you to go from San Benito High School to play on the Kansas City Royals, but we're not going to let you go to AAA to practice or learn anything. Okay, so we're not doing it for the school, and we're not doing it for the library. We're doing it for the population and especially the kids here, because every year we graduate another class. Every year. Just think about that. So if we wait 5 years, we'll have 5 more classes graduated. I will wrap up by saying we've got to get off the dime. Yeah, they got to give you more money for the library. I agree. But this is a crack in the dam if you can get them to go halfway. And as far as the education center, and I appreciate you giving me another minute, as far as the education folks go, they get 66% of the property taxes. I agree. They ought to start sending some of it back. And Gavilan, we gave them $108 million. 25% of that $108 million is being funded by the people of San Benito County. And if you look on your property tax bill, the biggest property tax add-on is Gavilan College. Okay? Bigger than our local schools, bigger than our high school. Gavilan College is cleaned up at our expense. They're going to get $25 million. They need to give some back. Thank you.
Thank you, Marty. Any other speaker cards? I'd like to invite any others from the public.
Mary Schneider, Vice President, Friends of the Library, Hollister. Good morning. At our board meeting last night, we were happy to hear about the outcome of the Intergovernmental Committee, and we appreciate the idea that we are moving beyond reactive thinking here towards planning for the future, because in the last 10 years, I've seen a lot of reactive thinking, and some of it has been dictated by circumstances. However, in my past life, I was a junior high school teacher, and I can flash back to those moments of trying to help 8th graders with future plans. How many years old are you now? How many years are you going to be in 4 years? What does your future look like? And I got some hard answers sometimes as to what kinds of outcomes people could imagine. And I spend a lot of time at the library, as the Friends are pretty strong material supporters, both in time and money, to the library. And so we do feel we're stakeholders, and we look forward to partnerships and planning for the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Any other folks from... Go ahead, Mr. Barnes.
Mr. Valdez, please start the timer. I'm a citizen. Thank you. I'm very pleased to report that I am a resident of San Benito County at long last. You've got me. I happened to be in a local coffee house last night making airline reservations. I'm such a new resident that I don't have internet service. In fact, I don't have furniture. But I was in a coffee house making reservations, and it was my observation that there were at least 15 high school-age students in there doing homework on their laptops. The coffee house has become the community center, if you will. This complex, when it's ultimately built, has the opportunity to recapture that community center feel. And I raise that because I'd like to have you think expansively. If there are amenities like caffeine available in a facility like this, it's a draw, and it's also a profit center. So please think expansively about mixed use and commercial applications in the project. Thank you.
Thank you, Brent. And we have thought about those things, and that'll come from that assessment, because we will be looking, I'm sure, being compared to other communities and what they have done to be successful. Anyone else from the public? Okay, I'll bring it back to the board.
No.
Madam Chair, I just got final comments on this item. I think Brent said it perfectly. The private sector needs to get involved too. It will be a win-win.
Yeah.
When the private sector does come in, and I do see it coming in. I see it as an visionary idea that's going to require a lot of leadership. It's going to require a lot of members of the public stepping up to the plate, and Gavilan College has got to come up to the plate, and the other educational institutions need to come up. It's a small step that is going to lead to other small steps that eventually is going to lead to the big step, and that is shovel ready. The day we get to shovel, it's our legacy. We can leave our legacy on this idea, and I hope I can get the support of the board to move forward. The city hall did it last night. Let's do it. Let's do it today. Let's tell the city hall that we want to play ball. We want to do ball. We want to work together as partners. And hopefully the Gavilan College and the Office of Education, the high school and the school district will also come up to the plate and say, we want to play ball too. But in order for that to happen, we've got to do it today, and hope we can get a vote on it today, Madam Chair.
Okay. Thank you, Supervisor De La Cruz. Any other comments? Okay, Supervisor Batella?
Yeah, well, it still comes back to the money issue part of it for me. In order to be a partner, you got to contribute, a substantial amount. I'm not expecting Hollister to pay half the budget or whatever for the library. I think that it's our responsibility. We should have the direction of the county facility, and I'm going to support this, but I also want to keep tabs as far as what the costs are and how Hollister is going to really want to be a partner next budget year when they talk, about, increasing the $15,000. That's a 2%, like I said, of our budget. And as we work together here, that would allocate, maybe free up some money to fix a road. That's the way I'm looking at it, or put a deputy on the street if we're partnering on some of these other issues. So I'll support this to see how it goes.
Okay. And we will certainly, Supervisor De La Cruz and I and our CAO who attends those intergovernmental meetings, will express your concerns and request. And I request every year more money from their budget for the library. Unfortunately, I have been turned down, but I still make an effort and will continue to do that. But bring your concerns to the table. Okay? And Sarah, I think Supervisor De La Cruz made a good point on involving the business community. So at some point, maybe we could look to them. Maybe we could make this presentation, depending on how it goes today, to the Business Council, the maybe Economic Development, and see if they want to be our partners as well. So, okay. Bring it back for a decision.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we authorize county staff to work with the City Hollister to develop and advertise a request for proposal qualifications for a needs assessment for a technology, education, and library center, and direct staff to keep the Board of Supervisors informed of action taken by the Intergovernment Committee on this item on a monthly basis, joint use facility, technology, education, and library center.
Okay. I second your motion. Any further discussion?
Yes, Madam. I'd like clarification of the second item on the motion. What is meant by inform of action taken by the Intergovernment Committee?
Well, what I envision from that statement is that once we get this MOU ready and everybody is on board, there will be discussion in intergovernmental as to expectations and who's going to be partners and how much are people going to, want to put forward. And we have to make sure that we let the board know that that is the direction that this idea is going, so that you're on top of it all the time, because this is a big commitment. And even though it's just the assessment initially, it'll be more than that.
Mm-hmm.
So,
absolutely.
Okay, I guess my question
Madam,
is who is going to make the determination of the once we receive the RFPs or RFQs, who's going to make the determination who gets awarded
The county will be making that determination. It's already been at intergovernmental. They said it is the county that would be making. CAO?
That's what I was just going to say. And anything that is that the county needs to financially support will have to come before your board.
Oh, yeah. No decisions.
I just wanted that clarification.
Yeah,
Thank
no.
you.
And those are what will come from there are recommendations and information. But this board will be the lead agency, no doubt. Okay, any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Okay, item number 18, CAO Espinosa.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This particular item is coming out of our HR office. We have Georgia Cochran here to present to your board the adoption of a resolution approving the collective bargaining agreement between the County of San Benito and the Management Employees Group. So there's a lot of work that's gone into the negotiations, the labor negotiations. I want to thank staff and our labor team as well as the MEG employees for spending some time and really working to come to a resolution and to come to an agreement. So similar to SEIU, but I want to have Georgia talk a little bit more about this. Georgia?
Good morning, Madam Chair and Supervisors. As CAO Espinosa mentioned, this is another bargaining agreement with the Management Employees Group. The parameters are very similar to what your board authorized for SEIU and has authorized authority for within this agreement. There's nothing particularly unusual other than the only thing that's different with respect to this, between this and the SEIU, is a reopener if the county is unable to get language with respect to exiting CalPERS Health and all that is a reopener to discuss. It doesn't commit the county to anything. But basically, it's again a 2-year term, will last through September of 2017. Provide a one-time payment this year. Provide a 2% increase effective the pay period that includes October 1st, and I think that's actually a late September effective date. The ability to cash out vacation in the absence of vacation, other applicable leave balances with respect to using that, the idea being to use that for medical premiums. Again, the same 4 days of holiday closure, and that's an item that you will see before you at your next meeting on December 1st. HR is gathering all the information from the department so that we can present to you 2016 hours as well as 2015 holiday closure. And this also incorporates, probably a really important thing from an HR perspective, is incorporating the dates, the side letters that we executed previously with respect to having personnel actions coincide with pay periods rather than randomly at the first of a month or at some other action in between payroll dates, except in very specific circumstances. So with that, we're asking that your board approve the resolution adopting the MOU, authorize the CAO to take the necessary administrative actions. We do have an implementation plan, and also authorizing the CAO to make technical edits. I think we've caught most of them, but there's always one laying out there somewhere.
Thank you. Any questions of Georgia?
Madam Chair?
Yes, Supervisor De La Cruz.
One question. The vacation leave accruals, the year of services, so this table is the same for all the other unions, right?
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
Any other questions of Georgia? Supervisor Muenzer?
It's not a question. It's just a comment. As I did with the SEIU, I just want to thank Meg for stepping up to the plate and helping us resolve the CalPERS issue and working with us on coming up with this agreement.
Thank you, Supervisor Muenzer. I echo your comments, and I do want to thank them as well, and staff and our consultants for being so helpful. This is always difficult, negotiations are, but at the end of the day, when we get these resolutions, it's very comforting to know that we can work through these difficult times.
I think the parties did do a really good job. SEIU, again, as well as MEG, and we'll continue to work with the remaining outstanding groups. And one of the reasons for pushing forward and trying to get these done is that what we need to be in a position to do is to begin drafting that RFP, bring the committee together, which would be composed of group representatives from all of the labor unions as well as unrepresented folks, to work through this process of selecting or recommending a proposed vendor to the board in the event that CalPERS rates continue to do what they have been doing. It's still one of those, when we get the rates in June, we want to be in a position where we can present information to your board to say, here's what we have if we stay, here's an alternate recommendation, ABC, so that now the board in the future decides who we contract with for health care.
Thank you, Georgia. Any comments from the public? Any speaker cards?
No speaker cards.
Okay. Any comments?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Georgia, in reference to that committee, because I did read that, it'll be makeup of some representatives of all the groups. It doesn't mention anything about a supervisor sitting on that committee.
Well, that's certainly something that we can discuss, although the idea is to bring the recommendations to your board rather than, it's your call.
Well, with all due respect, I mean, we got a hold of this, like a couple of weeks before we need to decide, and I want to make sure that if a supervisor is going to sit in there, at least that supervisor can report back to the board and saying, doesn't look too good, or yes, it looks looking good. So,
well, part of this, and certainly that's a call that the board can make. A big part of this is getting the RFP developed with respect to all the parameters that need to be in the RFP, floating that RFP, looking at the responses. That's where we might want an ad hoc committee from the supervisors. And then again, the decision really kind of, we'll have to see where that goes. My sense is that you might not want to make that decision until you know exactly what's happening in June with CalPERS. That usually happens the middle of June. If everything works well, the board is ready to act. Stay, go.
Okay.
Because there's a lot of work to be done. If you're leaving CalPERS, there's a lot of work to be done between summer and January 1st. But the board can do that. We have the language in the MOUs now with respect to an insurance committee, and that committee had not been used in several years. But it's really, we've enhanced the language and kind of escalated that role.
Okay.
That the language in the MOU does not prohibit a board member or two board members from sitting in on those meetings.
Okay, that answers my question. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, Supervisor Muenzer?
Well, I guess my question was going to be, is this part of the meet and greet? Not meet and greet. I'm going back to campaign, and I'm not even running this year. Help me with what I'm trying to say, Georgia.
Don't go there.
Well, the committee is going to be involved in the discussions in terms of evaluating proposals. The idea is to set criteria in an RFP, set rating criteria. People rate, individual people rate, and scores happen.
It's not dealing with the contract.
No, because that's what we're negotiating now. Again, this puts the decision back before the board.
Right.
We're involving them so that they have input into the process. But the reality is that committee could recommend ABC company, and the board could opt to go with XYZ. It is still your call, and that's not what we've negotiated. Is the board decides, not that the unions would get together with the county staff and present something, and that's what you have to take.
All right. Okay, I'll give the public an opportunity to address the board? Okay, we'll bring it back for a decision.
Madam Chair, can we make 18 and 19 together? Or they have to go separate?
I'd rather keep them separate because that's the way we've agendized it. So, and somebody may have questions on number 19. So, all right.
I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion to adopt 2015-86, the resolution that is approving the collective bargaining agreement from the San Bernardino County and the Management Employees Group, MEG, and authorize the CAO and county auditor to necessitate administrative actions appropriate for the purpose and intent of this action, including signing the final MOU, and authorize the county administrator and his or her designee to make the technical edits as later identified.
There's a motion and a second.
Under the question,
Yes,
Madam Chair,
please.
On number 3, authorize the county administrator, his or her designee, to make any technical edits as later determined. Can we put immaterial? I want to make sure that if any technical changes are made, they're so immaterial that don't require to come back to the board.
Well, I think that's the purpose of the word technical. We could say non-substantive.
There you go. I feel comfortable
Okay.
with something like that.
Okay. Yeah, and that is the way it's worded. So that's good. Okay. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? 4-0, and Supervisor Rivas has stepped out. Okay. Item number 19. CAO?
Yeah, very similar item. As Supervisor Jaime De La Cruz just mentioned, this is an agreement with our confidential management and unrepresented employees, in essence mirroring SEIU as well as MEG that you just approved. So we have Georgia here to add anything further if you like.
I don't think so. Again, this group does not bargain with the county, does not bargain with the Board of Supervisors, the county, although they are aware of this. Information is shared, but there is nothing unique or different. Your board has had a history of treating those groups essentially the same as you, equal to what you treat other groups. So that's the importance of this, is documenting exactly what that is so that we have documented history. There isn't any assumptions on any of that. So with respect, it's the same terms. It's just your confidential management, your confidential, and then you have a couple unrepresented classes, very insignificant.
Thank you, Georgia. Any questions of Georgia or comments?
Just my only comment, Madam Chair, just to make sure that writing is the same as the prior resolution.
Any public speakers? Any cards? Okay. Anybody from the public that would like to address the board? Okay, I'll bring it back for a decision. Item number 19. I'll make a motion that we approve per staff recommendation. Resolution 2015-87.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 20, CAO.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, this is our last item on our regular agenda this morning. This item came up two Board of Supervisors meetings ago, and we're here today to request your board to appoint two representatives from your board to the Area Agency on Aging Advisory Council. So this will help us have some representation there at their council. So.
Yeah, and I don't know how we missed the boat in past years, but we should have been at the table all along. And so now we're going to make it formal appointments. Very important. We get 25% of that budget, and nobody has been there to say anything about the needs of San Bernardino County, and so they're wondering, do you really need this money? You're not here. I think we need to be at the table, so I'm going to appoint myself and Supervisor Botello, if you'll accept that appointment, Supervisor, and we'll have someone at the table for these meetings. So that is my appointment. Thank you. And I don't think we need to take a vote on it. I think it's a discretion of the chair. Okay. All right, and at this time, I will ask our county council to report on the closed session items. Ask the public if they would like to make any comments, and we'll move to closed session. I don't know how long these items may take, Council.
It's probably there's 2 real estate ones and labor ones, so it's probably gonna be 45 minutes to an hour.
Okay, so I will ask the board. Do you want to, after he reports out, do we come back for closed session, or do you want?
Hold on. My response. What do you think, honey?
Good move, Supervisor De La Cruz.
I think she answered it for me.
So we do want to take a break then, and then come back for the closed session items. Is that the request? Okay, but we'll go ahead and report and report, and then we'll come back from lunch to closed session.
So return at 1:30.
1 o'clock is good for me.
1 o'clock.
1 o'clock.
We'll return at 1 o'clock.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair. The Board of Supervisors will now adjourn into closed session to discuss agenda items number 21 through 24 on today's agenda. Agenda item number 21 is to meet in closed session and confer with legal counsel regarding anticipated litigation and to initiate regarding the initiation of litigation pursuant to subdivision D4 of section 54956.9 in one case. Agenda item number 22 is to meet and confer in closed session with the county's real property negotiator. The property involved is the Lantis Ward property, located at 2100 Cienega Road in Hollister, California. The parcel numbers are 020-280-050 and 020-280-053. The agency negotiators are Brett Barnes, the RMA Director, Joe Horwittle, the Interwest Consulting Group, subcontractor Ray Espinosa, CEO, Matthew Granger, County Counsel, Barbara Thompson, Assistant County Counsel, and Shirley Murphy, Deputy County Counsel. The negotiating party are Dave Lantis, under negotiation of the price and terms of payment for the property in question. The authority to meet can be found in California Government Code Section 54956.8. Agenda item number 23 is to meet and confer in closed session with the county's real property negotiators regarding property located at 1161 San Felipe Road in Hollister, California. The parcel number is APN 019-040-010-000. The agency negotiators are Brett Barnes, the RMA Director, Joe Horwittle, the Interwest Consulting Group subcontractor, Ray Espinosa, CAO, Joe Paul Gonzalez, the Clerk Recorder Auditor, James Riding-Sawyer, the Health and Human Services Director, Matthew Granger, County Counsel, Barbara Thompson, Assistant County Counsel, and Shirley Murphy, Deputy County Counsel. The negotiating parties are Thor Wireless, CBRE-Inc. Under negotiation is the price and terms of payment for the property. The authority to meet can be found in California Government Code Section 54956.8. In regards to agenda item number 24, the board will meet in closed session to confer with its labor negotiators. Those agency designated representatives are Allison Hauk, Ray Espinosa, Joe Paul Gonzalez, Melinda Casillas, Georgia Cochran, and Steve Coffey. The employee organizations involved are institution associations, law enforcement management, management employees group SEIU Local 521, the general unit employees, SEIU Local 2015, that's IHSS, Deputy Sheriff's Association, confidential management, department heads, and unrepresented employees. The authority to meet can be found in California Government Code Section 54957.6. Thank you.
Okay, and any comments from the public? Please come up.
Is item number 21, that's not, topic's not mentioned, is that part of procedure for us not to know if it's anticipated litigation? You said there's one labor, two property.
Right.
There's 4. Is 21...
21 is in one case that we don't have to disclose, and we're not disclosing for reasons of strategy reasons at the moment.
Just asking. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions from the public? Okay, we will report out from closed session after we return from lunch. We will resume closed session at 1 o'clock. Thank you.